I know deep down I can control my lens of focus. To me, that is the greatest gift that I could wish upon anyone. For me, like when I look back to every big opportunity that has occurred in my life and my business, it started with a problem. A lot of my identity is actually formed from problems and my response to those problems. Welcome to another episode of the Bill Hauser Podcast. I just had a crazy experience a couple weeks ago, actually a week and a half ago, that I want to start off by sharing, which leads into why taking breaks are vitally important and why they become more and more important as you grow in business and life. Okay, so my wife, myself, my daughter Cammie, we were all planning on going to Costa Rica for the last week and a half, and so we had a full trip booked. We were going to the Four Seasons in Costa Rica, Guanacaste, beautiful resort, one of our favorite resorts. We'd been there before, and so when we fly to Costa Rica, I arrive at the airport and go through customs, and the guy scans my passport, and turns out my passport's expired. And somehow my passport didn't get caught by the American Airlines app, which is a multi-billion-dollar company. Somehow their app didn't catch that my passport was expired until after I got to Costa Rica. I had to find out from a customs officer. So literally had to get escorted by the police out of Costa Rica, myself, my wife, my baby Cammie, and we immediately we were forced on the next flight out of there, which miraculously was leaving like 20 minutes after this whole situation happened. Rush us onto the next flight to the United States, which was to Miami. And so we end up basically having in our mind that we were going to be in Costa Rica for the next week and a half. And within seconds, minutes, we're turned around as soon as we land in Costa Rica. Imagine the excitement, right? Landing in Costa Rica, ready for a vacation, ready for a trip, and then being turned around and being told you have to go home. So it definitely sucked. And within the first 30 minutes of the flight back from Costa Rica to Miami, we basically researched where our new vacation was going to be for the next week, because we didn't want to accept defeat. We wanted to still have our vacation. So we started, looking at the U.S. Virgin Islands. We'd already been to Puerto Rico before. We've never been to the U.S. Virgin Islands. I was when I was like 7 years old, so I don't really remember. So we researched this whole trip and basically booked an entire new trip within 20 minutes. And we ended up going to the U.S. Virgin Islands. We stayed in St. Thomas at the Ritz-Carlton. We got a trip credit for our stay at Costa Rica. We were able to switch our flights, return flight from Costa Rica, and we were able to go to the U.S. Virgin Islands. And it turned into an amazing trip. And we ended up going to, St. Croix, which is one of the other U.S. Virgin Islands. We stayed in St. Thomas. We went to St. John 2 times through ferry. We did the car ferry. It was really an amazing trip, and learned a lot of things in this process. One of the things is that when we got turned around in Costa Rica, I'm thinking to myself how most people would be completely like pissed off or negative or defeated by this situation. But after years of meditation and cognitive behavioral therapy and ways I've learned to turn negative situations into positives, it basically was 5 minutes of negativity followed by never looking back and not being negative about it at all. And the real turning point for me was when I looked at Cammie's face when this entire thing was happening, right? My 1-year-old daughter, I look at her face. We're getting, declined by a customs officer to enter Costa Rica. I look down at my baby's face, and she's on a front strap carrier with my wife, Emily. And she's just smiling, playing with my wife, Emily's lips. Like, she likes to do this thing with her hands where she just plays with Emily's lips, and was just being a baby and had no idea what was going on. We hop on the plane to go back to Miami. Cammie was silent the whole time. By the way, she's always silent on flights because she loves being with her mama. And it's a moment because she sits on Emily's lap for most of the flight. She loves her time on flights because it's time with mama, right? The whole time. So here, like, you look at this whole external situation of us being rejected from Costa Rica, and I look at my beautiful 1-year-old daughter, Cammie, and she had a 10 out of 10 day because she was with mama all day, and she likes looking out the window of the plane, and she's, oh, we get to go on this new plane thing again, right? And that was the first epiphany for me, is like, wow, like, we can all take more of a beginner's mind towards negative situations and experiences in our lives. The perspective that my amazing daughter had through that experience was arguably the most wise of all the perspectives in that situation. She had the most wisdom because she was enjoying life. She was enjoying every second of life through us getting rejected from Costa Rica. The second insight was I immediately was able to turn this into a positive in my mind because I was excited to explore a new area, number one. And number two, I was excited about the unpredictable last-minute nature of this. Like, it was exciting to think we're going to Costa Rica and then, we have to book an entirely new trip to a place we weren't planning on going. That to me was exciting. And I chose to look at that as, man, this is such a cool experience. Like, we're being forced into a new experience. Since we'd already been to Costa Rica before, that wasn't a new experience. We'd already stayed at the Four Seasons there before. This is a new experience, right? And that was exciting to me. And the last thing was, like, the ability for me to just book a $20,000 vacation, which is what it costed for us to stay at the Costa Rica for 10 days. The ability for me to pull out my credit card and spend $20,000 to rebook a trip and to not have to fly my entire family home and wait until my passport gets renewed to go to Costa Rica again showed me that a lot of people, who say money doesn't make you happy, money doesn't buy happiness, have it wrong. Like, having financial security can buy you some happiness. I always say this example, like, when I had my daughter Cammie, we were able to afford a night nurse, and it costed, I don't know, somewhere over $5,000 a month for this night nurse. That bought us happiness. We didn't have to miss any sleep for the first, 3 to 6 months of Cammie's birth, right? And that bought us happiness. And the ability for us to course correct and book an entirely new $20,000 vacation on a spot, in the first 30 minutes of our flight back to the U.S., that bought us happiness. That allowed our family to enjoy this entire vacation, that we had already planned, even though it wasn't in the place that we had planned to go to. So I had so many reflections. Another big reflection was on the flight from Costa Rica to Miami. I was able to come up with this disruptive new process through which our company, SMB team, is going to be embracing artificial intelligence in new ways across many facets of our company. Had I not been flown back from Costa Rica to Miami, that discovery may have never happened, right? So the reason I share this story and some of my lessons from it is oftentimes, I've had people kind of criticize my positive lens on life. I've had people call it naive, or I've had people say that they think it's fake. It's something that I like just publicly show, and then deep down I'm actually not like that behind the scenes. And what I can go to bed at night knowing is that, like, I know for sure I control the lens of my focus in 100% of situations, whether or not people approve of that, whether or not people think it's legit or not legit. I know deep down I can control my lens of focus. And to me, that is the greatest gift that I could wish upon anyone. I couldn't think of a higher quality gift to wish upon anyone than the ability to control what you focus on in any situation. Every situation that happens is a fact, right? The question is, how do you perceive and how do you respond to the facts, right? Like, when I went to Costa Rica, I've meditated for over 10 years of my life. I immediately went into a meditative place. Like, as weird as it sounds, I'm sitting in a smelly customs area with the customs guy, by the way, didn't speak English. Once my passport got declined, like he was speaking Spanish. We didn't understand most of what he was saying. He had to call over an English-speaking supervisor, representative from American Airlines. It was this whole situation. And within 5 minutes, I was able to go into a meditative place. And the one lesson I've learned from my meditation practice over the last decade is aware, accept, let go. Those 3 words are things I practice every time I meditate. Aware, accept, let go. So if you are not aware of your experiences in life, it's hard to accept them. If you have not accepted them, it is almost impossible to let go of them. And that's why it's a 3-step process I follow in my mindfulness. So aware. Okay. Awareness. How did I apply awareness in this situation? First, okay, I'm aware of the fact that Costa Rica has laws, and I did not, my passport being expired did not accompany or pass the laws of their country, of the admittance to their country. I'm aware of that. Now the question is, do I accept that? That's the second step. I chose to accept it. I chose to accept that if a criminal tried going into Costa Rica and had an expired passport, would they let them in? I hope not, right? I hope they wouldn't do that for the United States. So I accepted that this is a reality. Not just was I aware of it, I was accepting of it. And then I let go of it as quickly as I could. I let go. I like doing this motion when I meditate, opening my hands like this, because like it's a motion that I use to remind myself to just let go of the situation at hand, let go to my resistance of the situation at hand. Because until I let go of what I'm resisting, I can't focus on the next productive thought, right? So I let go of this being a bad situation. And as soon as I let go of this being a bad situation, my mindset from a place of awareness and acceptance went, great, I'm aware of this, I've accepted it, I've now let go of this. Cool, how do we make this the best situation ever? Well, then they're like, all right, well, we got to fly you back to your hometown. Now, because I was in acceptance and I let go of what happened, I was able to be more creative, right? So they first said, we have to fly you back to your hometown. You have to fly back to Philadelphia, right? I didn't want to go to Philadelphia. I wanted to go to Miami so that we didn't have to go all the way back up north, so we could just bounce to Miami and then go to our next destination. So I started thinking, all right, how do I make this the best situation ever? Okay, is there a way that we can fly to Philadelphia and stop in Miami? Like have a one-stop trip where there's a layover in Miami. I asked the guy, he's like, well, yeah, technically your destination would be Philadelphia. Yeah, you could do that, and you could just not get on the connecting flight. I was like, so it looks like we can fly to Miami. Boom, so now we fly to Miami. I don't get on my connecting flight, which, by the way, American Airlines has to cover your return trip when they make a mistake like this, not catching an expired passport before you get to the destination. So we got a free flight to Miami. Check. All right. Next is, like, how are we going to innovate the best possible trip on the back of this? And that's where it went into, man, wouldn't it be exciting to explore a new place, go to the Virgin Islands, book an entirely new trip, and boom, with this, because I had let go of the situation at hand, I was able to innovate. I was able to come up with new ways to make this experience, which on the surface looked like a failure, and turn it into a success, turn it into an exciting trip. And I just think this whole situation reminded me of the importance. At our company, we have a core value: adversity is an opportunity. And I can't think of a better display of that than what the story that I just shared. Now, this is a first world adversity. This is not real adversity, okay? Being declined of Costa Rica to a trip I get to go to, that's not real adversity. There's way bigger problems in the world. What I'm sharing is that adversity as an opportunity is a real thing. It is a pivotal mindset to being positive and being solution oriented in every area of your life. One book I recently read on my vacation, there's this book called How to Make a Few $1 Billion by Brad Jacobs. He's worth like $8.5 billion. It's an amazing book. And I believe, I'm pretty sure it was in this book. He talked about his business mentor, one of his business mentors that he would meet with for lunch every now and then. And his business mentor, every day he would come, when he'd have lunch with him, with his mentor, and Brad Jacobs would bring all these problems to the guy, right? Problem. And one day his business mentor looked at him and said, "Don't you understand that all of success is problems?" And he like was a little taken aback. He was, "Oh, don't you understand? I have problems." He was like, "If you try to avoid problems, you will not be successful." That was what his mentor told him. Because the more problems that you can solve, the more opportunity you're going to experience in your life, right? If you never solve any problems, then you are not going to have a great life. And if your life is problem-free, that's a pretty boring life. And it's about your relationship to problems that determine the quality of your life, not whether or not you have problems. That's brilliant, right? And for me, like when I look back to every big opportunity that has occurred in my life and my business, it started with a problem, right? When SMB team, for our first 5 years in business, SMB team profited almost nothing. I mean, like there were years where it was very close to being negative profit. And that was a really big insecurity of mine. That was a really big problem. The fact that we didn't figure out how to profit. We figured out how to grow, but we didn't figure out how to profit, right? And had I never experienced that problem, I would have never learned the skills that over the last 2 years have completely turned that around in our company and made us a sustainable, legitimate business that's running on a clear, methodically tracked financial model. And I don't know if I never went through that problem, if I would have ever invested the time and energy and effort to learn how to become the financier of my business. Like running out of money was the way I learned how to not run out of money. It was the spark, right? Same thing happened with when I started SMB team, when I literally had no company. I ran out of money. Like that was the spark of what caused me to sign up 8 clients in my first month when I started SMB team as a company. I ran out of money because I never allowed myself a plan B. When I quit at yellowpages.com, I got a bonus check. It took me like 8 months to make my first sale. And the only reason I made my first sale is because a problem came. And that was me running out of money, right? When I look at, any problem I've had, okay, I'll give you another example. When I grew up racing dirt bikes, I had already broken like anywhere between 15 and 19 bones before the age of 17 years old. And a lot of, were multiple bones per injury. It wasn't 17 separate accidents. Some of them were 2 bones, other were 3 bone accidents, right? Very, some multiple ribs were broken once. So in the process of me racing dirt bikes, by the age of 17, I already had arthritis in both of my hips, my left hip and my right hip. And I was diagnosed with what's called sacroiliitis, which is inflammation of the sacroiliac joint, which is basically your lower back. Lower back, if you go to the last vertebrae of your back and then you go to the left and right, you can feel your kind of sacro joint. It's kind of like right above your butt, right at your hips. That area, I had a formal diagnosis of arthritis of the sacroiliac joint by age 17. I walked into the doctor's office limping on both legs. I couldn't walk more than like a mile and a half an hour. It was really sad. And the doctor told me that this pain would likely never go away. So what did that cause me to do? Well, that caused me to research stretching routines where I innovated my, 21 stretch routine, which is what it's come out to. Pigeon pose, the cat cow pose, all these crazy, hip, the hip flexor extension stretch that I do where I put my knee on the ground, put my arms all the way up, and then I stretch my hip flexor. These 21 different stretches that I've learned to open up my hips, open up all these different parts of my body. I've had zero arthritic pain in my hips for, how am I now, 33? Probably the last 10 years. I've had no arthritic pain in my hips. And that was from something a doctor showed me the scans of, said, you're going to struggle with this forever. And I turned it around. And the reason I turned it around was because I had a problem and I learned a new habit because of that problem, right? The problem of having arthritis caused me to become an avid stretcher and later an avid exerciser. And because of these habits I learned because of pain, I've not only have I eliminated some of the symptoms of my arthritis, but I've also learned health habits that have kept me, in a more peak state than what I was in at that point of my life, right? Another problem I went through was my problems with anxiety disorder. And this was a significant problem, another formal diagnosis by a medical professional when I was going through school. What if I never struggled with anxiety, would I have ever needed to learn meditation? Like, would I have ever had to learn mindfulness and meditation and how to detach from your thoughts and how to aware, accept, let go, and these mind tricks and habits that I've taught myself on mindfulness and presence? Probably not. I probably would have never had to learn these things, right? But because I went through the pain and the problems of anxiety, I had to learn mindfulness. So a lot of my identity is actually formed from problems and my response to those problems. My health habits have, in large part, came from my injuries. My mindset and mental habits have, in large part, came from my mental ailments and struggles with mental health from my past when my family went bankrupt and both my parents almost committed suicide. So it was because of these problems that I learned some of my life's most important habits. And I worry about the parts of my life where there's not a problem ever. I worry about the parts of my life where I'm treading water, where I'm just comfortable enough to not experience a symptom, to not experience any negativity around this area. This is why, it's always frustrated me when you talk to this up-and-coming entrepreneur and you ask them, how are things going? They're like, oh, it's all good. I'm not scared of anything. I got this. It's like this false sense of hot air confidence, right? And I know for me, when I started my company, I didn't start seeing success until I owned my paranoia. Like, you have to own your paranoia. Like, only the paranoid survive. There's a reason that Andy Grove, wrote a book about this, about why paranoia is the core default mindset of successful business leaders. People who own their fears, they own the fact that they don't know what's coming around the corner. They own the fact that they don't feel their business is fully finished. It's not fully successful. There's problems here. There's problems here. There's problems here. I do not want to work with someone who constantly says there's no problems. I don't want to work with someone that constantly says, oh, it's all good. I got this constantly. Yeah, that's fine to have that mindset in response to problems. But if you're insensitive to problems, if you're neglecting the fact that there's problems, you're being delusional. And you will get disciplined by the market. You will get disciplined by whatever it is you're doing. If you don't believe that there are problems and you're insensitive to them, then there's no reason to improve. So your relationship to problems is it's something that, based on this trip, the story that I shared, some of the other examples I shared, it's something that for me in 2025, I'm going to focus intently on. And I'm not going to run from problems, and I'm going to accept reality. What's this other book I'm reading? It's on the concept of reality, and it was recommended by Brad Jacobs, who's the guy who wrote the book, How to Make a Few Billion. The book is called Confronting Reality. And this is by the former Honeywell CEO, which is like a multi-billion-dollar company. Confronting Reality, this book talks about, and this ties into problems, the number one reason that businesses fail is a delusional leader. The number one reason a department fails is a delusional leader, right? Delusion is what I would call that insensitivity to problems, right? It's this feeling of sunk cost bias, right? It's like the things that you're doing in your life and your business, they must be the right things because I've been doing them for so long, and we just got to get back to doing the things that we did in the past, right? This mindset of constantly going back to what worked in the past and being insensitive to if these things don't work any longer in the current or the future is a form of delusion, right? You can't live your entire life saying, "Oh, I just want to go back to how things were in the past. This worked in the past. This worked in the past. This worked in the past." If everything that worked in the past worked today, there would be no reason for innovation today, right? If horse and buggies worked better than cars today, why would people be innovating on cars? They would be innovating on horse and buggy, right? If lighting lights using fire still worked better than using electricity today, then we would be innovating on that, not on electricity. So the delusion is the biggest risk for most people. Like, I also think delusion exposes itself and is like, oh, I can do anything I set my mind to. No, you can't. You can't do anything you set your mind to. That is a false statement. If I wanted to be the best seamstress in the world, sorry, doesn't matter if I want that. I don't have the traits of a great seamstress. I don't have the attention to detail. I don't have the tactile ability with my hands. I'm not going to be the best seamstress in the world. No matter how bad I want it, no matter how much I believe it and positive self-talk to myself, doesn't matter, right? You can't do anything you set your mind to. Like, if I wanted to be the best ballerina in the world, it's probably not going to happen, right? So the key is embracing and radically accepting reality, radically accepting what are my God-given gifts? What are my gifts? What are the things that I am great at? What are the things that give me energy to do on a daily basis? right? And then how do I design my life around the things I'm great at and the things that give me energy? Then I can set goals within those parameters, and I'm going to be way more likely to be successful if I embrace reality first, right? Another thing is marketplace reality. That's kind of like self skill and passion alignment, right? Like when people say follow your passions, bullshit. You can't just follow your passions, right? If your passion is, music, and you can't even, sing a clear key, like on key of any note in any song, like, and you're 55 years old, you're not all of a sudden going to learn overnight how to sing on key, right? When there's other people who learn this naturally by age 5. I mean, if you listen to like videos of the first videos of Justin Bieber when he was singing, it's like amazing beauty perfection. Like, it's like, what? Like, this kid is like 5 years old and hitting vocal runs that someone can't even hit when they're 40 years old, who have been in music for like 30 years of their life, right? And he's doing it at 5 or whatever age. Like, that is what I mean by the matching of your God-given gifts, the things you're excellent at, and the things that give you energy, right? And the things you're passionate about. I can't just go and say, oh, I'm passionate about blah, blah, and overcome the fact, like, let's say that I'm 4 feet tall and I'm a 40-year-old. I can't just all of a sudden say I want to be a pro basketball player, right? It's just not going to happen. So there's constraints, right, around, following your passion and stuff like this. But on the business side, there's also constraints, right? So where is the market going? And is what you're passionate about in business, is that in line with where the market's going? If it's not in line with where the market's going, it's probably not going to work, right? So example of this is like, oh, I'm in love with, doing old school Kodak photography shoots for people. Dude, Kodak's out of business. Like, that is not what people want. You can't create a business out of that, right? So there's so many things that cause us in business or in life to be delusional, and the faster we can accept reality, is the business that I'm in the right business? Is the service or product that I'm selling within that business the right service or product? Why? Is this in line with where the market is going, right? Where do I see the market in 5 to 10 years? What is this industry going to look like in 5 to 10 years? Like, in part of my business, like, this is like accepting reality. I don't think there's going to be car accidents in the future, especially with autonomous driving. Like, for me to build my business around car accident lawyers for my lawyer business S&B team would probably not be that smart, because AI is way smarter than human beings. AI is going to dramatically reduce the rate of car accidents. It's going to change the liability landscape dramatically. Probably not a good idea to go build your business around doing things for car accident lawyers on the marketing side, because there's going to be less cases for that. So the more you market, the harder it's going to be to get clients for that. But then you look at it like niches like immigration law, right? Especially with Trump getting elected, which is going to cause a ton of uncertainty and potential change in that area in immigration law. That's going to be an area of peaking demand, right? Of people wanting great immigration lawyers. And I don't see that going anywhere in the near term, as much as I see things changing around car accidents, right? So, like, the faster that you can accept marketplace reality in your industry, and I'm just using my own industry as like some examples of things I'm thinking about, like AI, another great example. Told my team this a few weeks ago. Somebody is going to figure out how to build websites for under $10 in less than 1 day that are 50 to 100 page, beautifully crafted, perfectly SEO indexed websites. By the way, it's already been figured out, right? So like for me to just think, oh, we're just going to keep doing what we did in the past, we're just building, traditional websites through traditional coding and grassroots blah 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 because that's how it should be done. Doesn't fucking matter if that's how I think it should be done, right? The market is always going to reflect whatever the best option is, and it's going to go towards the best option. That is how supply and demand works, right? When there is oversupply of something and there's no demand for something, when there's too much supply of something and no demand for something, the only response is A, for the thing that's supplying the thing to either a lot of them to go out of business, or B, to dramatically drop price, right? So it's just not how supply and demand works. And then also marketplace trends change demand, right? So as things that people demanded 10 years ago are not what they necessarily demand today, right? And that's going to be the same thing 10 years from today. If you look at the best breakthrough businesses, they're typically people who saw where the puck was going. Then they weren't 20 years ahead of it, right? They weren't 90 years ahead of where the puck was going. They were just 2 or 3 years ahead of where the puck was going, right? Timing is critical, right? In some of the biographies about the founding of Netflix, they talk about this, how when they first wanted to transition from physical DVD rentals to streaming, I believe the first time they tried this, it was a little bit too early and it didn't pick up steam. But once the streaming revolution was kind of picking up steam and they kind of relaunched this, boom, Netflix became what it was today and it became primarily a streaming-based company. And think about the identity evolution that had to happen here when the world went from physical DVD rental to streaming. Blockbuster goes out of business, all that, right? Netflix had the balls, pardon my French, to go from being a DVD rental business to literally a internet-based streaming company with zero DVD rental and shipping. And their entire business was DVD rental and shipping. And they killed that entire part of their business to become a streaming-based company. That's how bold they banked on where the market was going. Meanwhile, the Blockbusters of the world went out of business. And they deserved to because they didn't adjust fast enough, right? They were milking out their cash cows, which were their physical stores of Blockbuster DVD rental. And they were milking out the revenues of that until all the demand dried up. And because they were so focused on making the past work, they never innovated for the future, right? And now that company is out of business. So that is going to happen. We are in the AI revolution right now. And this same spirit of innovation that's happened over the last 20 years, we're going to have 20 years of innovation happen in the next 5 years right now with AI. And it's just the pace of innovation. If you look at, how long it took for the humans, like the human genome, to learn how to cook with fire, it took them like 500,000 years or something crazy for fire to be a completely adopted part of the human genome and process, right? Is like where fire became adopted in society. It took another 250,000 years for them to start, using the fire in different ways, right? Then you look at when the first website was invented and how many innovations have happened since that point. Is it taking 250,000 years for new inventions to come out like ChatGPT? No, it's taking not much time between innovations. The pace of innovation is at the fastest it's ever been, right? So if we can't confront reality, if we can't run towards problems, if we don't look at problems as opportunities, then we're going to bury our head beneath the sand, and we're going to take our head out, and we're going to find out we don't even have a business anymore. So, takeaways from today's session. My first takeaway is run towards problems, not away from them, and challenge your relationship to problems. Understand if you're not having problems, then you're not having a successful life. And number two is to understand the reality of life, of business, of your strengths, of the things that give you energy, and most importantly, of where the market is going. And stop being delusional, because delusion is what kills companies, kills empires, and can kill the potential for you having a great life. So I hope you got value from this episode, and I'll see you on the next episode. Peace. If you found value in this podcast, here's one way I can help your firm right now. First, you can get our new book, Law Firm Growth Accelerator. It's everything we've learned over 10 plus years helping lawyers build thriving, profitable firms. The strategies that you'll get in this book work for any practice area and any revenue level. You can get the audiobook and ebook 100% free, or just cover the shipping and we'll send you the physical copy to you in addition to the audio and ebook. Go to smbteam.com/book to get your copy.